Thank you, Sophie Clapham. It is always busy on sitting days, and we're joined live now by Victorian Liberal MP Tim Wilson. Tim, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Now, pretty extraordinary move by Labor in the House this morning to try and suspend standing orders. Do you think Gladys Liu needs to make a statement to Parliament?
Well, she actually has made a statement to Parliament. The expectation that Labor has set out is the verbal statement, your commitment to Australia. She's actually given that. She gave that the day she was sworn in. I gave exactly the same statement.
That's
so I think this is
before these allegations came out. But this
is what's actually really disturbing about the shift that Labor has taken. Yesterday they were trying to draw equivalence between a Labor senator who had tipped off people that were under surveillance by intelligence agencies, had made public statements betraying Australia in terms of its national interests against our foreign policy to make allegations. Today they're making other types of smears and allegations, and I think the Attorney General had dealt with this very clearly, where he highlighted that the standard that they were applying to her was the same. If they applied the same standard, then Chris Bowen would have to make statements announcing his position to the Parliament. I mean, I think we need to be adults. If people have allegations, they should make them, but this campaign of smear is unjustified if somebody's come to Australia, they've made a commitment to our country, they're a sole citizen, and they have been elected by the people of a community, that they have a right to serve, and if somebody has some sort of compelling evidence, they should bring it forward. Otherwise, they're just trying to smear the individual.
Well, that is what has happened. It has been brought forward that she was a member of this association for 12 years, didn't recall it, and then clarified that she was a member. And that's contradictory, and so that's something that should be clarified in Parliament. She hasn't given a statement to Parliament. She's released a written statement.
Well, she has released a written statement, and nobody's suggesting that the statement originally made or now is in bad faith. And so this new extra hurdle or expectation doesn't override the commitment she gave at the start of the Parliament, the same one that every member of Parliament does. And I think, frankly, the way that this is being conducted and the deliberate attempt to constantly try and undermine or question evidence, if they actually have something substantive, bring it forward. Otherwise, they're just engaging in a deliberate campaign of malicious smear where we're saying to every person who serves in this place either has to have no associations with anybody, and/or they have to make these extra hurdles because they weren't born in this country. And that's basically what Labor's saying.
That's basically what Section 44 is saying.
No, Section 44 is about whether you have a dual citizenship.
No, but it's whether you have an allegiance to another country.
That's right.
And we're not talking about anyone. We're talking about the Chinese Communist Party.
Mate, I can tell you right now that there's only a couple of us a couple of their MPs would be in the same club of being as deeply sceptical and question the Chinese Communist Party as I would. I question their motives and their aspirations and their tentacles across the world and including into Australia. We need to be firm and clear about that. But I'm also not going to reverse the onus of proof and declare people guilty, as Labor now seems to want to do, unless there's some sort of credible evidence. What we have is a member of Parliament who's duly elected, who swore an allegiance to Australia, and as far as I've seen, they haven't brought anything forward yet apart from a campaign of smear.
Now, I know you don't have much time before you have to get back to the House, so I did want to ask you as well about the House Economics Committee. You had Graham Samuels, former ACCC chair, fronting the committee. He was very scathing of APRA from his capability review. Is the government response to that good enough?
Well, firstly, Graham Samuels acknowledged, as did the whole capability review, that APRA had done a good job in terms of the traditional regulator with its traditional role. It had criticisms around how they conduct themselves and some of the internal management culture and the need to increase its focus on superannuation and also to increase transparency. And that's what he's done. The government has given resources and assistance to APRA to do its job. And the question that particularly Professor Samuel, I should say, yesterday rightly outlined is, are they fulfilling that purpose? And he wasn't prepared to or meet the standard of implementing the recommendations, and only time will tell.
He was sceptical about the approach that was recommended by the Banking Royal Commission, that you should litigate first. There should be always the priority. What kind of message does that send to APRA when they're getting one message from the Royal Commission and the government's in step with that, but then the experts reviewing them think something different?
Well, what everybody wants is APRA and ASIC to be tough regulators, not to be cosy with the bodies they're operating in. And his point was, if you have proper transparency mechanisms, there's proper self-assessments by the bodies or the institutions that it's regulating, that there should be enough there that really litigation should be the last resort if it's necessary because they've failed those standards. And I think that's the point, which is have the proper process in place. Hopefully you stop it, but then also make sure that institutions know that they should be in full fear that they will be dragged through the courts if necessary to be held to account, to make sure they're meeting consumer demand.
And just finally, Labor's having this discussion today about its carbon target, that it's not going to meet its original target by 2022, obviously, because they didn't win the election. But now they're saying they should be targeting a net zero emissions target. Do you think that's realistic?
Well, I think they don't have a plan to get there. That's the key difference. Labor has this grand aspiration, they have the talking points, they have the rhetoric. They don't have a plan to get there. We have a very clear plan about how we're going to get to our targets and what we've set under the Paris Agreement, working with other countries and recognising Australia's unique situation. You know, whether it's huge investment in things like hydroelectric power, the record rollout of solar, reducing the amount and encouraging of emissions from industry and encouraging productivity so they reduce emissions, which actually plays to our competitiveness strength. We've got a plan every step of the way. They've got an aspiration they can't back up.
Tim Wilson, thank you for your time. We'll let you get back down to the House where you're giving a speech.